Hey, runners only, yeah, let's get it started. Hey, this is runners only with Dom Harvey. Fast paced, slow and steady, anywhere you coming. Just wanna connect for everyone who loves running. This is runners only, yeah, let's get it started. Hey, this is runners only with Dom Harvey. Fast paced, slow and steady, anywhere you coming. Just wanna connect for everyone who loves running. Hey, runners only with Dom Harvey.
Runners only with Dom Harvey and New Zealand cricketing legend Jimmy Neesham. I came up with this nickname for you, and I didn't know if I was going to bring it out or not, but I was doing some research about you, Jimmy Neesham, and you're familiar with the movie Forrest Gump.
Yep, of course.
And he's pivotal in all these important key parts in history.
Yeah.
Like, you name it, Forrest Gump's there. And I feel like that's the same as you. You're there right at the end of the Cricket World Cup final. You're there when, on the other end, when McCullum gets 300 runs. There's all these important moments in New Zealand cricket, and you're right there in the thick of it every time.
Yep. I was in the stadium when Grant Elliott hit his six in the semi-final in 2015. I wasn't playing, but I was there watching. So, I wasn't there for the underarm incident in 1980-something.
You weren't born.
Yeah.
You couldn't have been.
Most of the other ones, I've been there or thereabouts for, which is pretty cool, yeah.
Yeah, but they're absolutely key moments.
Yeah.
Like moments that are going to end up on the underside of beer bottle lids as trivia questions in decades to come.
Yeah. I suppose it's a little bit testament to, I suppose, the level of success we've had over the last 10 or so years. I suppose rather coincidentally, since I started becoming involved with the team, we've sort of started challenging for those trophies and stopped being an also-ran in a lot of global tournaments. And I suppose when you have those significant moments as a team, then you're obviously more likely to be involved as an individual.
Why is that? Why is New Zealand cricket in such a rich patch at the moment? What is it? Just like a lot of amazing players? Is that what it is?
To an extent, yeah. I think we had two really strong cycles of World Cups going through in 2008 and 2010, which, you have guys like Trent Boult, Southey, Williamson, Doug Bracewell, myself, any number of the guys that are in that kind of 30 to 32 age right now all sort of came through at a similar time. And I think when you combine that with, the leadership of guys like Brendan McCullum and Kane and, people putting the ship in the right direction, I think you're going to have some better results.
Now, the podcast is called Runners Only with Dom Harvey, so that's why I've invited you here today, because I know running's quite a big part of your life. Obviously, there's you're running between the wickets in cricket, which you're involved with, and you do very well. But running's a big part of your life as well. I follow you on Strava. You get out there, you mix it up.
Yeah, probably. I wouldn't say it's a deep-seated love of running. I think it's something that, to be honest, I've always been weak at in cricket. I've always been quite a strong, bit of a gym bunny in that respect, and always sort of had to force myself to do the running side of things. And it was really kind of in the first lockdown, a year and a half, 2 years ago now, that because of not having access to a proper gym, I sort of got into running a bit more. And I suppose it's just like anything. If you force yourself to do it enough, you sort of get a bit better at it. And I've tried to continue that on now. We're sort of back into a little bit more normality. I
had no idea it was such a loathing for you. I thought you enjoyed it. My heart is breaking.
I'm just not good at it. What
do you mean? You go all right. Like, your sort of jogging pace is about 4 minute 40 kilometre.
Yeah. It's I'm just too big. I'm 6'3", 100 kgs. It's sort of, I'm never going to have the natural inclination to be a quick runner. So I sort of, I go into the hurt box, as it's known in cricket. So, those 440s don't come easy. But, I sort of get out there and, try and get the 5Ks done, sort of anything up to 10Ks and anything longer, the road gets a bit heavy. So, it's good for cricket, obviously, being out in the field for such long periods of time. It's great to be able to have that cardio base, I guess. And
right.
I think it's certainly helped me. I'm, fingers crossed, a reasonably, I suppose, resilient body. I don't get injured very often, and I think it's definitely, from that kind of base of cardio and strength.
Do you think when you finish with cricket, it's something you'd keep doing just for like fitness or mental well-being or anything, or no? You're absolutely done with running as soon as cricket's over.
I think I'll be like a once a weeker, I reckon, once I'm done, just for that, that base of cardio. I can see myself being quite strong, going to the gym kind of every day kind of thing post cricket, but running, as I mentioned, being so heavy, it can be quite, wear you down in your joints a little bit. So, I want to give swimming a little bit of a go as well once I've got a bit more time. But certainly gym is the first love, and then running is something that I've picked up recently and trying to keep up with.
Yeah, swimming just seems like the most tedious and boring sport to train for. You know what I mean? It's so solo. You're staring at a black line, maybe seeing the occasional Band-Aid, and that's it. It's just you staring at that line for 30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah, I've got a theory that there should be two separate categories of sport, and there's the sports where you're actually competing against someone, like rugby, soccer, cricket, boxing, those sorts of athletic sports, and then there's sports that you can do with no one else around and sort of compete against someone who's in England, and that's kind of swimming, running, those sorts of things where it's just you against a stopwatch. And I think those ones where it's just you against a stopwatch I really struggle with, because it's tough to get that competitive instinct.
Yes,
I'm much more a boxer or a rugby player or something like that, where you're up against someone and you're throwing jabs and they're dodging, rather than just, I'll try to run this 100 meters as fast as I can and hope that it's faster than whoever's next to me. So swimming is definitely one of those sports where it'll be such a mental test to be in that pool. I follow Sophie Pascoe on Instagram, and just seeing what she does in the pool every day is I couldn't handle it mentally, I don't reckon.
Oh yeah, as far as a sport goes, when I was doing breakfast radio, we'd get calls like at 6 a.m. from parents that are taking their kids that aren't old enough to drive to the pool. Like the training that's required, and you think how many of those kids are end up going to making it to the Commonwealth Games or Olympics? Not many. So the training that's required is just phenomenal. You got these kids that are going in the morning for a session, maybe again in the afternoon for a session, for hours at a time. The dedication is next level.
Oh yeah, I actually dodged a bullet in secondary school. I got sort of roped into the rowing team for a week or so, because I've got the body for a rower.
Sure.
And I did a couple of those early mornings, and then I think my parents decided that cricket training after school plus rowing in the morning is probably a slightly ridiculous schedule to be having. And I dropped off it pretty quickly. But geez, yeah, you're right. It's I mean, especially rowing where you're going backwards the whole time and you don't really know, you're not even seeing where you're going. So
that's true.
I'm not sure how those guys do that.
And were you always sort of quite gifted in the sporting department, like growing up? Were just naturally good at whatever you tried your hand at?
I think, I do and I don't believe in naturally gifted sportsmen. I think, naturally gifted sportsmen, I believe, are just people who always loved physical activity the whole time they were growing up as kids. And, I sort of think back to, my cousins and stuff at Christmas, and we're always, playing cops and robbers and running around and backyard cricket and all that kind of thing. And sports just always been, a part of my life. My old man was a rugby player and mum was a netballer, and, they always encouraged me to play as many sports as possible. And I suppose, when you get to the age of 14 or 15, people look at you and go, wow, he's gifted, but there's sort of 10 or 12 years already of running around in the backyard, and behind you. And I certainly, I was physically gifted through my teens and coordinated and that kind of thing. But I do think that sort of came from a heavy diet of physical stuff when I was growing up.
There's that saying that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. Was there sort of like a natural gift though, like at age group levels, where it's like, oh, this kid's got talent and we need to harness it? See, because I'm thinking like me in my cricketing days. I was very shit.
Yeah,
very shit.
Cricket's a sport where a lot of people are shit.
Yeah, but I'm. How old are you?
31.
Yeah. I'm 49. So when I was like 10 or 11, intermediate age, that's when Lance Cairns, Chris Cairns' dad, was like the king of New Zealand cricket. So I had an Excalibur cricket bat. I bowled the same way as he did.
Yeah, off the wrong leg. Off the wrong leg, kind of.
Yeah, kind of with using both hands.
Yeah.
It was a very unorthodox bowling style, and to be fair, wasn't very effective. So it became, I don't know, for me, I loved cricket more than anything, but I tapped out at about 14 because I just couldn't deal with letting teammates down. But I'm guessing that wasn't the same for you. You were probably the guy on my team that was sighing all the time at me for getting out for zero.
It's a tough one, because I think I look back at those days, and we had a really, really talented team, like a club team back when we were sort of 13, 14. No guys that have kind of gone on to play professional cricket or anything, but guys that we were a really good team, and it was a proper cricket team. And I don't see myself back then as being one of the better players in that group. I was decent and good enough, but sort of not kind of a generational talent like guys like Kane Williamson and Tim Southey and stuff were coming through the age groups where you could sort of just see,
right,
like,
really?
this guy's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
So I sort of came through. I don't think I made the Eastern Districts team at under 15s or under 14s, one of those age groups. I didn't make the team, so I certainly was not the guy leading the pack sort of the whole way through, but it was sort of that kind of 17, 18, 19, age range where I sort of started to put it all together and probably got a little bit fitter. I was a bit of a chunky boy coming through my teens and just persistence, I think. Like a lot of those guys, just decided to do other things and, go get some went into other sports like rugby, and other guys just sort of became more academic. And I suppose I just persisted with the cricket a little bit, and it's one of those journeys where it's sort of small gains year on year, and then you turn back 10 years later and go, geez, how far have I come? So, but going back to the original question, I was always painful in PE class because that was always my favourite class of the day. But no, I wouldn't say I was, Usain Bolt from 16.
And so you made your Test debut in 2014, scored a century on debut. That seems to happen quite a lot, doesn't it? Why is that? Do you think you're just like hyper-focused, or you're nervous and you're channeling the nerves into something really good?
I mean, you're right. It would obviously, you'd have to do a statistical analysis, wouldn't you, on number of hundreds versus debutant hundreds. But, it does seem, even just in New Zealand at the moment, we've got, Kane, Tom Blundell, Devon Conway, myself, Hamish Rutherford as well. So there's a lot of guys that do seem to come in and do it. But I think there's certainly an aspect of the unknown from other teams. Guys sort of bowl to you and they don't really know what you're about, and potentially underestimate guys a little bit when they're making their debut. And cricket's a funny game. You get a bit of momentum and things can sort of happen really quickly. So I'm obviously not playing Test cricket anymore at the moment, but those first two tests are pretty fondly kind of looked back on.
Yeah, why you played your last test in 2017? Why is that? Is it too hard on the body, or you just prefer the shorter formats?
I was dropped, so yeah, it was sort of,
sorry, my bad.
Yeah, it's it was just one of those things really that I was having a little bit of a lull in performance. I actually only played 12 tests, which people, sort of don't realise. So, I'd sort of had a rollicking start in my first 5 or 6 tests, and then I had a bit of a kind of lull in performance, and actually broke my finger a couple of days before a test in Christchurch, and ended up getting Colin de Gronholm got picked ahead of me for that test, and then he got, I think, 7 for or something on debut, and obviously has performed unbelievably well since then, and I've sort of just never been able to get a look back in, really. I think it's quite a difficult situation to be in, being a white ball international cricketer, because we play so much white ball cricket. We don't actually get the chance to play much 4-day domestic cricket, so there's not that much of a chance to kind of force your way back into the team. I think we've seen that with guys like Martin Guptill as well over the last 10 years or so. You don't have that opportunity to play a lot of 4-day cricket in a row and kind of get the rhythm of it. But certainly something I haven't given up on yet. I do play a lot of T20 cricket and stuff around the world, just basically because that's what's available to me at the moment. But
seems like that's where the money is as well, so it's not a bad situation to be in.
Yeah, certainly I'm not complaining. It's one of those bizarre things where I'm obviously not getting picked in the Test team at the moment, so I'm going and playing T20s around the world, and often, your match fee for a T20 in these other leagues is the same as a match fee for a test match, for New Zealand, which is played over 5 days instead of 3 hours. So you sort of watch the guys on TV, slogging it away for 500 overs, and then go out and play a T20, and you guys sort of get the same paycheck. So it's a bit of a strange way about it that the world goes at the moment. But despite that, certainly I'm keen to get involved again in Test cricket if I can. I'm still only 31, so got 4 or 5 years left in me, and certainly something I want to tick off before I retire. Yeah.
Can you explain to me and anyone else that's listening, like why is it such a big difference? Like, surely, from my perspective, and I'm guessing the same as a lot of people that listen, cricket is cricket. You know what I mean? So if you can play well over 20 overs or 50 overs, why can't you play well over 5 days?
You mean difference in the people who are good at each?
Yeah, like why are you being picked for all these other formats of the game, not the tests?
I think Test cricket is, from a bowling skill set, it's much more about moving the ball around, having a nice seam position, being able to swing it, being able to set guys up, versus T20 cricket, which is a lot more about being adaptable, being able to escape batsmen, bowl Yorkers, slower balls, like variations, that kind of thing. So from a bowling perspective, the skill sets can be very different. From a batting perspective, for me, I've never been the most technically sound batsman. I'm powerful, I can hit big sixes, but I sort of struggle with, the consistency of a forward defence and being like right in behind the ball and that kind of thing. So when you look at someone like a Kane Williamson, who's very still at the crease, very small, small movements, gets into good positions, and then you put that next to me, who's, big, stands with his legs far apart, big high backlift, it's quite different, technically in how you find success. And it's one of the challenges of the modern game is guys who have to adapt. You might play a series against a country that's, 2 tests, 5 one-dayers and a couple of T20s, and you've only got 2 or 3 days to actually try and, adapt your technique in between series. It can be incredibly challenging, and that's probably something I battle with a little bit. I was also very young. I didn't really know my game that well. As you said, 2017, I think, was the last
2017.
Test. So, I was 26, so you're still finding your way a little bit as a cricketer at 26. So certainly would be a chance I'd relish to get another go at Test cricket again, and as a more complete cricketer and as a cricketer who sort of knows my game a bit more.
Yeah, wouldn't you find? I don't know. It just seems more boring. Like I see you on TV and you go out and you smash 27 off 11 balls, like in the T20 semi-final. Then Test cricket, you got to just sit there and block for hours. Like, wouldn't you get bored and just take a swing at it?
Well, the thing about Test cricket is that it's the most satisfying. You sort of
explain.
Well, it's just so hard. Physically, mentally, it's the ultimate challenge in the sport. It's kind of like running an ultra marathon. It's almost just the mental aspect of getting through. And T20 cricket's great. You walk out, you're right. You walk out, hit 27 off 11 in a semi-final, and you walk off and you're in the change room, and that feeling in the change room is great. You've managed to succeed for your country, but compare that feeling to the feeling in a change room after you've bowled 24 overs on day 5 of a test to get a victory after 4 days of toil, and everyone's sore and tired and trying to get through, and you sort of look at your mates next to you after that kind of toil and coming out on top. I think that kind of satisfaction is sort of on a different level.
Now let's go back to that the World Cup semi-final where you got 27 off 11 balls. Is that the one where there was a clip of you that went viral afterwards, and everyone? So you guys won that game. New Zealand won that game. You were playing. Was it England?
Yeah.
In the semi, and then you met Australia in the final and just got beaten by them. But in there's a clip that went viral, and it's all your New Zealand teammates like jumping around, fist pumping when you won the game, and you were just like sitting there, and you actually look kind of pissed off.
I was a little bit. It's sort of, having been so close to 2019 World Cup final, get to the Super Over, lose. I've been involved in a lot of Super Overs and been close to many different, titles. And, for me, I'm not happy until you win. It's been taught rather harshly to me that, you can't get ahead of yourself and, get too happy before the job's actually 100% finished. And, that was, I don't begrudge the other guys on the team for celebrating a victory. Obviously, it was a ridiculous win, and we probably thought we'd lost it. But, I'd already turned my focus to the final and, in a few days' time. And
is that right? Yeah. So your mind was already on the next game at that point?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like immediately?
Yeah, immediately. Even sort of before we won, when we needed, 4 runs off, 8 balls or something. Game actually got to the point where we were so far ahead of the game that we pretty much couldn't lose it, from being so far behind that we couldn't win in the space of kind of 3 overs.
And a lot of that was to do with you. I mean, you won't say this, but I can. A lot of that is probably to do with the 27 that you got off 11 balls. Like, that made the run rate considerably easier for New Zealand, didn't it, from there on?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in that period as well, Daryl hit a couple of sixes as well while I was out there. So we probably put on 50 and, 15 or 18 balls or something.
Yeah.
It just swung. And, by that point, I've never been one to over-celebrate. If I get wickets, you're never going to see me doing some of these stupid celebrations where guys, do backflips and dance and
Oh, come on! If you could do a backflip, you'd do a backflip. I know I would.
This goes back to being too big again. Right. It's just not cool when you're 6'3", 100 kgs. You can't do backflips or dance or anything. You just look like an idiot. So, it's probably born out of the jealousy of watching younger or smaller, more live men kind of be able to do that kind of thing. But I've never been a big screamer and shouter and a fist pumper and that kind of thing. And I suppose it just comes back to trying to control your emotions in a sport that can play with them a lot. And, obviously, 3 days later we did lose the final, so it was probably pretty appropriate not to have celebrated too much on the semi.
After that, you tweeted, "Job finished." I don't think so, which sort of explained the way you were feeling. The rest of the team, do they give you shit about that, or does anyone say anything about it?
No, not really. I think one of the the good things about our environment is that we do accept different points of view and different personalities really well. We've got a couple of guys in the team that would self-profess to be weirdos, and it's about accepting those kind of blokes. And in the heat of battle, things happen. You say things you regret, or things that sound silly, and or do things or whatever. And it's part of sport where guys express themselves differently. And no, it was never something that really got brought up, to be honest.
Not in front of you anyway.
Not in front of me. Probably guys were talking shit about me behind my back. But.
And the 2019 final. So that was, I remember, this is so funny. I remember being in Istanbul at the time with my mate Andy, and we were watching it on my iPhone, and then my battery died, and we were watching it on his, and then his partners. We even contemplated that morning like flying back to England for the game. It was like that exciting. What was it like being there? And did you have any idea like what would happen, what the process would be if it was a draw at the end of the game? Were you aware of all that stuff?
Yeah. Well, the funny thing that no one knows, but I always bring up, is that I'd actually won a super over on boundary count back before. By the way, Steve, there are a lot of people who won't remember what we're talking about. Do you just want to explain what happened at 2019? Yes. So we basically one day World Cup final ends up being a tie, which means both teams score the same number of runs. We'll go to a super over, which is kind of like the tiebreaker, like a penalty shootout, and that was tied. And then it ended up being we lost, England won on count back, which is basically who hit the most boundaries during the game, which is a completely farcical way to do it and
stupid.
Makes no relevance to who's played better whatsoever, but was the rules. I'd won a T20 Otago Volts versus High Veld Lions in 2013. Exactly the same, super over. I was bowling. In fact, exactly the same, run out last ball, to win the game. So we knew, like, we hadn't talked about it beforehand, but once it was a super over and once they'd got 16 or whatever it was, 15, we talked about it in the sheds going out that we needed to beat their score. It wasn't good enough to tie it. We knew that we needed to beat it, and we couldn't. Got close, but not quite. It's something I don't think you ever really accept a little bit. I still sometimes just sit there and think about the super over and, what different decisions I could have made during the super over.
Is that right? It still plays through your mind?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I'd say.
So what was that, 3 years, coming up 3 years, like 2.5, 3 years?
Yeah, July 2019. Yeah. So
I had Shane Cameron on the podcast, the boxer, and he told me, do you remember his fight with David Tua, the fight of the century? He told me it took him about 10 years to get over that.
Yeah.
10 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean...
Do you think you'll be over this 2019 game within 10 years?
I think I've got a chance.
Yeah.
I think I'm at 2 now, 2.5, and I can talk about it.
Yeah.
So, I think, surely 7 more years can be over it, yeah. It's one of those things. I think when you're in control, when you... something happens or someone plays a great innings against you or whatever, you can kind of accept it a little bit more. Like I can accept the T20 World Cup final lost in 2021. I can accept that. I've got no problem with it whatsoever because Mitch Marsh came out, batted well. That's part of sport. Guys play well.
Sure.
But when you have just such freakish bad luck, seemingly repeatedly, to almost conspire for you not to win the game, then that's probably a little bit harder to take. I think especially when you're involved, specifically yourself are involved in the final throes of it.
You and Guppy right at the end, right? Martin Guptill. Yeah.
And it's sort of, in cricket too, where it's just such a freak sport where you can make good decisions and have bad outcomes. You can make terrible decisions and have good outcomes. There's no rhyme or reason to, at least in small sample sizes, why people are successful and some people aren't. So yeah, you certainly play through, especially the last couple of balls, and sort of think about different options. But I think, yeah, it's one of those things that takes a while to unpack.
Yeah. I mean, it was such an extraordinary game, though. And you were involved with that. So I suppose, as I mentioned before, like you're involved in this game that is going to go down in history books. May even in future tournaments could rewrite the rules potentially.
Oh, I mean, the rules I think are rewritten.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Since then?
Yeah, I think they've changed it now where you just go super overs over and over again until someone.
Oh, that makes way more sense, right?
Actually wins. Yeah, that was my argument at the time. It was like no one's going home. It's the World Cup final, a super over that is tied. It's whatever time it was in London, 7:30 or something in the evening. There are lights at the ground. No one's going, I said I'd be home for dinner at 8, and leaving the ground. It's kind of like people have got another 10 minutes for guys to come out again and do another super over. So yeah, I thought it was a bit farcical at the time that it wasn't that. But I mean, you can't complain because they didn't make the rule up on the spot during the game. It was there in the rule book beforehand, and you can take that on the chin and sort of move on.
What was it like in the dressing room after that? Did you cry?
Yep.
Yeah, did you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. It was like a morgue. Yeah, it was.
Was everyone crying? I mean, everyone expresses their emotions in different ways, I guess.
I think the overwhelming emotion was disbelief. No, there wasn't much anger. It was just kind of, I was disappointed because I felt like I'd let the rest of the team down. I think Guppy was obviously, pretty devastated, having had, I suppose a challenging World Cup, in total, and then to have that to kind of put the icing on the cake was pretty cruel. I think disbelief overall, just silence for what felt like 20 minutes until, guys came back in. Kane obviously came back in from the media and all that kind of thing, and it was kind of surreal. I think guys just couldn't quite fathom what had happened. Because we'd won the game really. I think England needed 16 from 3 or 16 from 4 or something. It was pretty much over. And then to have it kind of taken out of your grasp like that, and a lot of the guys had no control over anything. A lot of the guys wouldn't have touched the ball for the last half an hour.
Yeah,
so you're almost a spectator at that point, and to go through that, it's a sort of 2-month tournament from start to finish, and then have it finish like that. Yeah, definitely disbelief.
Oh, you must have felt the love and support from New Zealand though. Like it was massive.
Yeah. Well, I didn't actually come home for a while, so it was funny. I stayed in London for a couple of days and basically got pissed the whole time. And then I went to take a train up to Liverpool. I went to see one of my friends, old friend from Otago, and stay with him for a couple of days. And I went to London Euston Station, and there was a gigantic banner. I got my ticket, and I went to go to the kind of the platform that has all the platforms and where you need to go and that kind of thing. And I was looking up at it, and this gigantic, it would have been 30 metres by 15 metre electronic billboard popped up of England lifting the trophy and all the fireworks going off and everything, and I was looking up at it and I was just like, for fuck's sake. It was kind of like, and sort of got on the train and, got up there. It would have been good now if I could have had a mask on and no one would have been able to see, but everyone was sort of looking at me. I had my Black Caps bag and everything, and it was just like, fucking hell. And everyone was coming out going, you guys are so unlucky, and, sort of go, you just want to go and climb into a hole and and hope that everyone forgets. But luckily I actually went to the Toronto for the Global T20, a T20 franchise tournament that was there, and Toronto was the perfect place to be because no one gave a shit about the World Cup.
No one would even know really what cricket is
exactly. There. And all the other cricketers that were there knew not to say anything.
Out of respect.
Yeah, out of respect. Not a word was spoken about it the whole tournament because everyone was there. I think on the first night, a couple of guys were like, how are you coping? And then I was kind of like, right, this is the last time we talk about this for the next 2 weeks. And then from then on, it was just basically go to the ground, play a bit of hit and giggle, have a slog, then go into Toronto and have a few beers and sort of spend a fortnight basically trying to forget about it. and then came home after that, and by that point it had sort of died down a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, the whole nation felt for you guys. So you and Martin Guptill being there at the end, going through something like that together, that's got to create some sort of bond that sort of connects you guys in a deeper sort of way for life, surely.
Yeah. Well, we were close already.
Yeah.
We played for the same cricket club in Auckland. Way back in 2007-8. When I was coming out of school, and we've been to obviously any number of social events together over that period of time, knowing a lot of the same people and. I actually said before we went out for the Super Over, how cool is it that we've come, full circle from, I remember, when he got picked for New Zealand, way back in 2007 or 2008, and he got a 100-run debut as well, actually, in an ODI against West Indies, and, being so in awe of him then, because I was, 2 or 3 years younger than him and just come out of school, and he was 21, 22 and playing for New Zealand, and looking up to him a lot, and then sort of coming full circle. He obviously stayed in Auckland. I had to go away to make my career, and to sort of come full circle around and be out there together. It was a pretty cool moment, and you find or try to find ways to comfort someone like that when something like that happens. But I think there's not a lot you can say in those situations. Just got to give guys space for 20 or so years. And
10 years, according to Shane Cameron.
Yeah.
I suppose that's the difference with like the Shane Cameron thing, taking 10 years to get over the tour fight, and you guys. Like boxing is, there's nowhere to hide. Like he got a hiding in that fight. And it's a solo sport as well. I suppose at least you guys have got each other in a situation like that.
I think it can be a really good thing. It can also be a really bad thing, because depending on how strong your culture is, it's very easy for people to blame other people when things like that go wrong. And in boxing, unless you're going to blame your trainer or something like that, at the end of the day, it's you out there. And if you get punched in the face, it's because your hand was too low or whatever.
100%.
In cricket, it'd be totally justified for people in the Black Caps team to blame, me or Gappy or whoever, didn't win the game, even not who lost the game, who didn't, do something.
Oh, you could never do that. Who do you mean like sports commentators or media, or not your teammates? Surely.
Well, I think I've been in cricket teams in the past where the batters and bowlers have had a rift. You're losing games, and guys are going, we can't bowl to subpar totals every game and expect to win, and all this kind of thing, and because guys get dropped, and sometimes not based off their own fault because of team performances. And I've certainly been in cultures in the past where people play the blame game and, point fingers at other people for their failings and that kind of thing. But I think that was probably incredibly fortunate that we had such a strong culture in the team through that World Cup where, it was never really even mentioned by anyone, that, people could have done things differently or, whatever. It was just kind of like we're in this together, one and all in, and, the result was obviously pretty shit, but, it was a result that we all took on the chin.
Yeah, actually, I never really thought of it that way, but I suppose like cricket's one of those things, even though it is a team sport, there is a whole lot of individuals within that team sport in terms of like stats and records and whatnot.
Yeah.
So I suppose even though it is a team sport, I suppose you still have people playing an individual game to a certain degree.
And the reality is it would be, especially in domestic cricket or, leading up to IPL auctions and all these sorts of things that people have individual goals. You want to get picked for New Zealand, you want to play as many tests as you can, you want to go for $500,000 in the IPL or whatever. So there's actually very logical, justified reasons to be very selfish in a cricket team. Because people look at guys' records and what they average and that kind of thing. But I think the thing is around domestic cricket, especially, other cricketers can tell. You play other teams and who in that team is a bit selfish and will play for themselves. And, we'll get to the end of a one-dayer and instead of trying to hit a six, they'll just go, and they'll hit one along the ground and get not out and, help their average. And guys who won't run at the end of a T20 because they don't want to get run out. And, all these little moments in cricket where you can tell, if guys are actually in it for the team or in it for themselves. And
Are those people sort of frowned upon?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes they get a talking to.
Right. By who? Like captain, coach?
Oh, senior players in the team.
Right.
Whatever. We've got a culture in New Zealand cricket where it's not really, like Steady would never tell anyone off for...
Who's Steady?
Gary Stead, the coach. He wouldn't pull someone aside, and it would be much more a player-led thing.
Right.
Where, I mean, I've had it happen to me. It's sort of...
Have you?
Yeah, where I remember we were playing a one-dayer, and I can't remember where it was, but I was bowling, and someone did a shit piece of fielding, and I kind of blew up at them, and was frustrated. And
Well, you're a competitive guy.
oh, because you're a competitive guy, you're in an environment where it's a high-pressure environment, and it wasn't even that bad. It was kind of like, oh, for fuck's sake, or something. And Tim
You
Southee-
are the guy. You're the reason why I stopped playing cricket.
yeah, exactly. But just out of frustration,
Yeah, of course.
And Tim Southee actually pulled me aside after the game.
So he's been around a little bit longer than you.
Yeah, so he's a senior member of the
Right.
team, and he just sort of reminded me, like, that's not how we go about things in this team, and everyone's trying their hardest, and blah blah blah. And it was sort of like, and it was 100% correct, and you sort of take it on the chin, and probably didn't like it at the time, and probably went back to my room and went, oh, fucking picking on me, whatever. But you sort of have some time to yourself to think about it, and you sort of go, well, it's probably justified, and I think it's important that you have a culture where guys can call each other out, and and you can take it on the chin and realize that it's about making the team better and moving forward as a group rather than sort of being picked on or being singled out or whatever like that.
God, you guys really are the nice guys of world cricket, aren't you?
Yeah.
Like the New Zealand team. You've sort of been called that before, I know, on the world stage. But you really are. Seems like it's such a respectful and polite environment.
Yeah, well, I think, you can't... I think a lot of other international teams have the depth of player to sort of just flick guys out, if they're not gelling in the team, and, if they're a good enough player, they'll just keep playing because, they have enough people that if people disagree, they can just drop one of them and that kind of thing, because there's such a big player base. Where I think in New Zealand, there's 15 times 6. There's only 90 other cricketers outside the Black Caps to choose from,
Right.
whereas India have 500 and
Yeah.
Australia have however many in grade cricket. So you actually need to value the individuals and actually get everyone working together as a group, because there's actually not, 3 more Trent Bolts in domestic cricket. There's not 2 more Kane Williamsons. It's sort of like the guys you got who are the top echelon of talent are kind of the only ones you've got.
Yeah, right.
Which is starting to change a little bit recently. We're getting a little bit more depth with kind of A teams and that kind of thing, but it's certainly been a challenge in the past with New Zealand cricket. Is just a lack of numbers.
Now, we're recording this on the day of the IPL auction. So you woke up this morning to news that you were picked up at the auction for how much?
150 lakh,
Which
which
is
is about 300,000 New Zealand.
right. Is that exciting? Is that exciting to wake up to, or is it like, oh, cool, and then just on with your day?
I think it depends on what part of your career. I remember getting picked up when I was 23 or 24 the first time, and it was like the best day of my life. And now I'm a little bit older and a little bit wiser, and I've been through that ringer a few times. It's much more the latter. You sort of, okay, cool. Now I know what I'm doing in April and May, and the money is sort of, it's nice, obviously, but it's sort of secondary to trying to be involved in a unit that does well, and sort of the experience of India and playing cricket at the highest level and that kind of thing. And it's something. I'm 31 now, so I probably don't have that many cycles left in me. So it's always nice to get one more under the belt.
Yeah. So do you think you were selected because of that World Cup semi that we talked about before, where you got 27 off 11? That can't have done you any harm, right? Because they love the big hitters.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you'd hope that scouts of those sorts of teams are a little bit more intelligent than picking teams off one innings. But yeah, look, I mean, I played at Mumbai last year in the IPL and had a pretty good tournament. With the ball, I didn't score runs, but I got quite a few wickets. And I think by now at 31, I've sort of shown my wares in international cricket over a number of years. And they're not stupid. Those IPL teams, there's a lot of money involved, and a lot of analytics and that kind of thing. So I'm sure there would have been a lot of match-up talk going into it. And just really excited to play with some of the world's best players. Josh Butler's in the team. Trent Bolt, who I played with last year, has come over to Rajasthan as well. And Sanju Samson's an unbelievable Indian, youngster who's sort of making his way, and it's sort of a real privilege to be able to work in an environment like that where, last year I got to, train in front of Mahela Jayawardena and Zahir Khan and, legends of the game, and this year I go Kumar Sangakkara as the coach. There's some of the guys who've been literally the best players in the history of the game, and you can sit there for 2 months and pick their brains and figure out how to get better. And
Do you pick their brains?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know, would you not see yourself as a peer to those people?
No, God, no.
Really? Why not?
Kumar Sangakkara scored about 40 Test hundreds and averaged 50 something. He is one of the greats in the history of the game, and no, I wouldn't see myself as a peer to him at all, either in knowledge or in ability. I think, I'm good. I'm good in this era of the game. I hold my own, but when you compare to guys like Sangakkara and Jai Wardner and Shane Bond and these guys that have been true greats, you can only sit there and listen. And Sachin Tendulkar was in our management group last year. And to sit there and share a bottle of red with Sachin and talk about playing spin and that kind of thing, you just sit there and you just sort of
just hang off every word.
Well, you just try and get them talking as long as possible. You're sort of looking at your watch going, fuck, it's 2 o'clock in the morning. How am I going to... And he's going, oh, you want to be light on your feet and go forward and back and that kind of thing. And you sort of just go, oh, well, like, what about if it's doing this? And you sort of sit back and they just talk for another 15 minutes and you sort of sit them the whole time. The shame is you don't remember any of it the next day. But,
because of the wine.
Yeah. But you try and pick up things in the nets and work on things. And I suppose the biggest value is just finding out that these guys are all human. They all have their own, self-doubts and times in their careers when they were struggling and actually talking through it with them and realising that, you're not alone. You're not an unusual person if you're going through these self-doubt moments and, struggling in your career and stuff, which is always, pretty cool to experience that.
Oh yeah. Speaking of that, what's your mental health like? You seem like quite a stoic and resilient guy, but I'm guessing cricket's one of those things that does have the potential, as far as sports go, to sort of fuck with your head a little bit.
Oh yeah, it beats you up big time. I think, I've had struggles in the past. I actually had a period of time out of the game and in 2018 and sort of went back into the real world and got a real job. And
Did you? What'd you do?
I was the communications assistant for a agri-tech company. Right. So
that's random.
Yeah, my partner's brother was high up in the management of the company, and they needed just another pair of hands to do some shit. And I just was there for 4 or 5 months, and I actually really enjoyed it. What it actually did for me was it actually removed the fear of cricket not working out. I'd always been a cricketer from I left school and went straight into the Auckland Aces changing room as a first year rookie, and I'd never really experienced a real job, and I'd always sort of had the fear of what if cricket doesn't work out and I get dropped and I have to make my way into the real world. And then doing that for 5 months, I actually realised that I'll be fine.
You'll always find something, of course.
Yeah. And it's and then when I got back into cricket, that removed that fear of failure, and God, I really need to make this work, and probably took a bit of a weight off my shoulders and allowed me just to focus on what's important, which is watching the ball and trying to score runs.
Yeah. So what do you do to make sure your mental health is where it should be? Like, are there some triggers, or do you know if things are going off balance?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's about autonomy. It's about having control over my day-to-day life, being able to make decisions. Like, I think something that I've been really challenged by with having to be in bubbles a lot. Is that lack of control over your life. And, I've always been a guy, it's funny, I absolutely despise going to the gym in the team gym window. Like, I hate being in there with other people all the time. And, like, for me, like, exercise is a chance to escape and be by yourself. And so a lot of people have sort of said, oh, you don't gym much. And it's like, well, no, I gym a lot. I just don't gym much when you're gymming.
Yeah, that's good.
If the gym window is 10 till 12, I'll go at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, right.
Sort of, so I need to have that control over my own movements. And so I'm fine when I'm back in Auckland generally. When when I'm at home and got my car and can train when I want and run when I want and that kind of thing, I'm good. It's just challenging on tour with bubbles and stuff to try and find that autonomy. And I mean, it's challenging. I'm probably one of the guys that struggles the most in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
But I think it's about being aware of how long you've been away for, what kind of teams you want to sign up for, what kind of period of time you're going to be away from home, and sort of identifying areas where you might be battling.
Oh, you're a dog guy. I'm a dog guy as well. God, you must miss your dog when you go away.
Yep.
Who looks after the dog?
Yeah, I got my fiance Alex is at home, and does Kanye's asleep underneath me. So she does the heavy lifting from that. I mean, he's pretty good. He's very low maintenance. Take him out for a walk in the morning, and he's pretty chill the rest of the day. So he's pretty good with that. But yeah, it's it's not a lifestyle that lends itself to pet ownership. But,
So how long are you away for? What do you reckon on an average year? How many months?
Last year was bad. Last year I left at the very end of March, and I got out of MIQ on the 1st of December. So it was
That's pretty much the entire year.
yeah. So, and you've also got to think, when I'm home, that January to March period would have been playing, in different parts of the country. So even when you're home, you're not, home for the majority. So you're playing games down in Dunedin and Christchurch and Wellington and stuff. And it can be extremely challenging. But I think the thing we focus on is that it's short term. It's probably,
in terms of your life.
in terms of my career.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be another 4 years probably at the most. And then after that, hopefully you've built up enough of a nest egg behind you to sort of not ever have to do any of that kind of thing again. And that's kind of one of my main goals at the moment is to get that financial, I suppose, clout behind me to be the dad that drops his kids off and picks them up and doesn't have to.
Yeah, has that
work and
flexibility.
all that kind of thing.
Yeah, are you on track? The IPL money must help.
Yeah, it does. That extra 300 every year or so. Yeah, it does help boost things. But I think I'm not a flashy guy. I don't own a Rolex, or have a Beamer or anything like that. I'm pretty happy with my Mazda and my Garmin. So it doesn't take a lot. On track for the skinny version at the moment, and then we'll see how the next few years go.
Yeah, but I think that's the key to happiness, just wanting less rather than wanting more. I really do.
Absolutely. And I think, obviously it's an incredibly challenging environment at the moment financially for a lot of people in New Zealand with, house prices and that kind of thing. And, I obviously have a lot of friends who aren't cricketers, who are kind of engineers or teachers and that kind of thing. And it's sort of, for me, rams home, how privileged we are to be able to earn what we can while we can. So, a lot of people, the IPL auction, there's, some stinking players went for kind of $1 million plus. So,
Some stinking as in no good.
yeah.
Really?
So you sort of sit there and probably...
How does that happen?
you know,
we were talking before, and you said the teams aren't dumb, so they wouldn't just pick you on that one performance. How does a stinking player go for $1 million?
Well, it just comes down to what the teams need. A lot of the time, the more desirable players, and this is not a rule, but a lot of the time, the more desirable players people plan for. So they sort of go, okay, Trent Bolt's coming up this number in the auction. Do we need a seamer? Yes. What are we willing to bid for him? We're willing to go up to 1.2 million. And then so everyone has these plans. Mm-hmm. And everyone obviously plans for getting him. But naturally there's 10 teams and there's probably 7 or 8 good fast bowlers. So all these teams plan for getting these guys. And if you can get down and you're one of the last couple left of that group that everyone's targeted, all the teams look at each other and go, well, there's only 2 good bowlers left now and there's 4 of us.
Gotcha.
So all of a sudden that's when people make dumb decisions because they panic and go, okay, shit, if we don't get one of these 2 guys, we don't have a bowler. And that's when guys go through the roof.
Right.
So that's what happened to Kyle Jamieson last season. And I'm not saying he's a stinking player, but he had a really good year.
Yeah.
So he had a lot of teams that were looking at him going, oh, he could be really good for us.
Yes.
And he was in a small auction that didn't have many fast bowlers. So then 4 or 5 teams looked at him and went, oh, we really need him. And that's how you go for kind of 2.7 million because there's limited numbers. I mean, he went for 2.7 million. Jai Richardson went for 1 point something. Riley Meredith went for 1 point something. These are all, good bowlers. Good, don't get me wrong, very good fast bowlers. But all the teams already had their top echelon fast bowlers locked up. Guys like Jofra Archer and Trent Bolt and Lockie Ferguson, Stark, Cummins. All these guys are already locked away. So then you get the guys that are coming up again, and those are the ones that go massive. Yeah. So there were a couple of all-rounders who kind of have had a good couple of months and got the eyes of the world on them, and a couple of teams panic and pay overs, and I think 5 years ago I would have looked at those guys and gone, "This is bullshit." I'm better than him. 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 But after you kind of go through it a few times, there's probably 4 or 5 guys who didn't get picked up at all looking at me going, I'm better than him. It's
that's how it works.
It's the way it works.
Right.
So you sort of be thankful for what you do get and sort of just move on.
What was your biggest year for the IPL?
This is my biggest.
Oh, 300,000. Yeah, so big year for New Zealand. 11 New Zealanders picked. You got 300,000. Lockie Ferguson, 2 million. Trent Bolt, 1.6 million. We have talked a bit about the money, but how does it work? Surely it's not as glamorous as it sounds. Like you get taxed, you pay an agent. How much do you end up getting? Like half of it?
Yeah, I think. I mean, it depends how much you play as well. I mean, obviously, it's per game kind of thing. So if you get picked up you get 80% if you don't play. So if you get picked up for $1 million and you don't play at all, you get 800 grand kind of thing. And then agents. Some guys have agents. Some guys have their fees capped. That's kind of different for different people, and then obviously tax. So I think generally, if you can walk away with half, you're pretty good.
It's not bad for a couple of months' work.
Well, absolutely, and that's the thing, And I remember, I look back in my very first year when I got picked up for Delhi. I got picked up for about 230. And I was 23 years old. I had nothing. I'd played 2 years of domestic cricket. I probably had a net worth of about 30 grand. And it's sort of like, and I got picked up for 230 grand, and I was disappointed because everyone had told me, like, you're going to be a millionaire, like, you're going so well, like, these teams need you, like, these teams are going to bid for you. Like, Corey Anderson went for 900 grand, half an hour before I went up, and so you're sitting there going, I'm going to be a millionaire.
Well, today's the day.
This is like, oh my God. And then I remember, like, it went, sold for 230,000 or something. And I was like, what?
Is that all?
Yeah, like that was, and you looking back now, you go, that's a completely insane way for a 23-year-old who's worth 30 grand to look at getting paid $230,000. But it's all the expectation of, I deserve this, and he's got this amount, which means I should be there or thereabouts.
Yeah, you can't
kind
compare.
of thing. And I look back now and go, I was such a penis. Like, I should have just been so happy and like more money than I'd ever seen in my entire life. And I was disappointed. And I look at that person and I go, what a fuckwit. Like, now you sort of go full circle and you sort of go, awesome. Like, tick it off. So grateful, like, so lucky. And just hopefully be able to stay uninjured and get over there and sort of continue being able to play a sport for a living, and it's a very
living the
privileged
dream
place to be in. Yeah.
And do you enjoy going to Indians? Love their cricket. They're absolutely mad about it. You must be like a rock star over there. It's got to be good for the ego. Is it good for the ego?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it is. It's different now with all the bubbles and stuff. You're very separated, and people can't get into the hotel. You can't leave, so you have the same people all the time. So at Mumbai last year, I knew all the waiters' names and stuff, because the same people working kind of breakfast and dinner and that kind of thing, and they'd sort of, oh, you want the usual for breakfast, Jimmy, sir? And you'd go, yeah, poached eggs on toast, avocado, and it became almost like an extended team. You have these guys, and and I remember thinking, like, oh, these guys are pretty cool. Like, they're not fanatical about cricket. They're just here for the ride as well. And then it got down to the last night where we were going to leave the next day. And it was just like a frenzy. It was like photos and autographs and can I have a shirt and can I, like, all this kind of thing. And I made a piece of artwork for you and, like, all this kind of thing.
So they're just being super chills the whole time.
So they'd obviously been given the hard word, like, to not
bother the players.
Like, not be fans. Because in the bubble, it is kind of your sanctuary is within the bubble. You kind of, you can't really escape it. So it's not ideal to have people kind of in your personal space and that kind of thing. So they'd obviously been given the hard word.
Oh, that's adorable. That's lovely.
Yeah, and it was funny, and you sort of all the guys like, oh, thank you, sir, like kind of thing, and you sort of go, oh, they are still fans, and it's definitely a massive difference from the first year I went was obviously pre-COVID, and you go into nightclubs and going out to people's places and sponsors evenings and dinners and that kind of thing, and it's all very frenetic and.
They're passionate, aren't they?
Yeah, so passionate, and they love the game, and they love the individuals. So we had in my team, Kevin Peterson was in our team at Delhi, and he was just an absolute, just like literally, genuinely a rock star. Like, would walk in and he could just walk around, do whatever he wanted. If he went to a nightclub, he could just walk up and DJ the nightclub if he wanted to. Like, he could do anything. And people would just nod and go, absolutely, sir, and like go. And it's sort of, you sit there as a Kiwi who's, you sort of stay in your place as a Kiwi, don't you? You sort of come in and you never ever say, can I skip the line? Like, do you know who I am or anything like that?
Absolutely not.
You never ever like anything like that. And then it's almost expected. You sort of walk up to a nightclub in India and they go, why are you waiting back here? Like, just walk up and go in. And you sort of go, oh, no, I'm not really that comfortable doing it. And then KP would just sort of strut to the front of the line and just stroll in. You go, okay, I'm with him. You
just don't want to be the first one.
Yeah, exactly. Just sort of follow him in. And we were walking through this thing and it was Kevin Peterson, JP Duminy and myself were walking in and we walked past and this guy goes, oh my God, Kevin Peterson. And he goes, oh my God, JP Duminy. And he looked at me and he went, Steve Smith? And I was
I can sort of see it.
Yeah, and I was like, yeah, thanks, mate. Yeah.
I can sort of see a bit of Steve Smith in you, the Australian guy.
Well, I mean, if it was the other way around, you'd be called racist. But if it's said to a white man, you go, oh yeah, you look kind of like, you look similar. Yeah, all you blonde hair, blue eyes guys look similar. Yeah.
Amazing. And who was it for you growing up? Who did you pretend to be in the backyard when you were playing cricket? So when was that? Like 20 years ago, I'm guessing, when you were sort of 11, 12?
Yeah. So I would have been. I loved Adam Gilchrist. Yeah, I loved Chris Cairns. I'm trying to think of that kind of Nathan Astle, those sorts of guys. Yeah,
back in the teal blue days?
Yeah.
The glory days of New Zealand cricket.
And the glory days when Chris Cairns had his long hair and sort of at the top of his mark going like that. And it's sort of. I mean, I was a cricket fan. Yeah, definitely. I remember getting my bat signed by these guys, like on the side of an oval and that kind of thing. And it's a pretty cool experience to now, because you never really realize that you've become that person.
Do you not? You must feel like it if you're fielding at the boundary or something. And there must be times where you feel it.
I think you sort of feel it by how people treat you. But like I remember getting an autograph from Chris Cairns at Eden Park and kind of giving and just being like, oh my God, this guy's like amazing. And now you sort of stand on the outfield and you sign autographs for kids and that kind of thing. And then it's almost like that imposter syndrome where you go, I don't really know if I should be doing that. You sort of come into the change room and you're just with your mates who, you play cricket together and you know that, you're all kind of battling through a little bit, trying to figure things out and, trying to work things out technically, and then you sort of walk out into the field and people think you're this kind of deity, and it almost feels a little bit you're unworthy at times. And you sort of go, you shouldn't really be looking at me like that. You shouldn't be looking at me the way I looked at Chris Cairns, because he was just such a larger-than-life individual to me at the time. But
it's fascinating that you'd still feel that way. Yeah. It's really nice to know, though. It's really good to know.
Yeah, I think that's a distinctly Kiwi thing, I think. I'm not sure if many of the other countries around the world have players that think that way. Yeah. But like knowing the guys on the team, I know a lot of the guys feel similar. It's kind of like we're just kind of trying to get through, trying to win games of cricket. And, sort of, and I almost still feel like at 31 I'm starting. I'm still learning and still trying to become better. Cool. And obviously there'll become a time where my body sort of can't do it anymore, but I still think I'll be in awe of these other guys until the day I finish, I think.
You still got a lot to offer. Actually, on that, I might just phone my friend Bridget, her 7-year-old son Benjamin. When she picks up, do you want to ask for Benjamin?
Hi, Bridget. It's Jimmy Neesham here. How you going?
Not a phone call I was expecting.
Is Benjamin around?
He is. Just a moment, please.
Apparently he can spin both ways. I don't really know what that means.
Hi, Benjamin. It's Jimmy Neesham here. How you going?
Good.
Are you a cricket fan?
Yeah.
Yeah? You a Black Caps fan?
Yeah.
How are you going? Are you a batsman or a bowler?
All-rounder.
All-rounder, yeah, that's the way. All the best players are all-rounders, eh?
Yes. Why don't you ask me a question about batting and bowling? Do you like batting or bowling more?
Or I like batting more because bowling makes me really sore. What about you? What do you prefer?
I like both.
Oh, you're probably going to be better than me then.
Hopefully, with a bit of luck, and then he can keep me in the retirement I would like to become accustomed to.
Oh, are you going to play for New Zealand one day, Benjamin?
Hopefully, that's what I want to do.
Oh, perfect. Well, keep working hard, and I'm sure you'll get there.
The other question that he did have, he's a little bit shy, was what's your favourite innings that you've played?
Oh, favourite innings? I think I would have to say probably the World Cup against Pakistan. We were in
recent T20 World Cup.
No, the 2019 One Day World Cup. We were in a bit of trouble and managed to get the team out of a bit of a sticky situation. So I'll probably say that one for how challenging it was.
Excellent.
Okay. It was good to talk to you guys.
Thank you.
No worries. See you later. Good luck.
Bye.
See ya.
So you wouldn't realise the impact you have, but like he's a chatty kid and he doesn't shut up about you, and he's just obsessed with cricket. But I suppose as soon as I don't know, maybe it's stage fright or something. But as soon as the moment comes, you must have that. A lot of kids that just go completely freeze on you.
Yeah. It's it's funny. It's because you can see, like obviously I've got eyes, so you can see people from like a long way off, and you sort of. Sometimes, you can
tell that they've noticed you.
Yeah, and sometimes you'll be sitting in the mall food court or something, and you'll sort of see a kid kind of wide-eyed looking at you, and you sort of go, okay, I wonder if this kid's going to have the guts to come up and actually say something, and you can see the dad kind of just nudging them in the back and go on, like go say hi, and you're sort of sitting there like watching, going, is he gonna? And probably. Way more than half the time, the kids just go, no.
Yeah.
Sort of sit down.
Oh, it's the cutest thing. So that kid, Benjamin, they live just at the back of the apartment. I said to my friend Bridget, I said, if Jimmy's got 5 minutes afterwards, we'll come around and say good day and have a photo.
Yeah.
And I did the same thing a couple of weeks ago with Hayden Wild, who got a bronze medal in the triathlon at the Olympics last year. And his response, he was, how many of these people am I going to meet, Mum? I'm just wondering when I'm going to go back to my real life.
Yeah, I suppose that's the benefit of having a world-famous podcaster next door, isn't it? You get all the guests.
Maybe. Hey, you've been so generous with your time. One more thing I want to ask you, the COVID thing. You must be so pleased that, touch wood, we're getting to the tail end of that. How many isolation days have you done, do you reckon, all up? Have you sat down and worked it out? How many stints?
Well, I know I've done 3 of the managed ISOs in New Zealand.
14 days each time.
The last one, I managed to sneak in when it went down to 7 for a little bit. For one of them, so I did 14, 7. Bubbles, probably another 5 months, probably, bubbles, which is obviously essentially MIQ in the hotel, not allowed to leave except for the ground, and probably more than that, 6 months maybe. And then obviously when you're overseas still for other tournaments, there's a lot of restrictions around sort of where you can eat and what you can do and all that kind of thing, so... I am well and truly ready. Hopefully everyone's vaccinated and boosted and everyone's sort of ready and prepared. And, middle of the winter, coming into next summer, we're going to be back through the back end of it. And
yeah, we'll be humming. What about tests? How many tests do you estimate you've had, COVID tests?
I would say somewhere maybe 300.
Oh, my fucking God.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
Yeah, when we were doing every day in IPL, so just go down to breakfast. There's a dude there in the room next to breakfast, and go get your test. And
not the nose one.
Yeah, the nose one.
Oh my God!
So,
wow, your poor nose.
Yeah, well, I think in IPL it was nose, throat every morning. So 2 up the nose and then 1 in the throat. Each morning, and obviously every time we fly, you need to get the pre-departure, sure. And it's sort of when I was at Essex as well playing county cricket, it was every day before training. If you want to come into the change room, you've got to get an RAT test. Very used to it by now. But the worst one is New Zealand pre-departure test.
Is it why?
New Zealand go the hardest,
right? Yeah, in terms of depth of the nose,
in terms of depth, and because you can rank them all. Because in IPL, they're obviously testing you, but they don't really want to find it. Like they want to keep the show rolling on, so they kind of do a little kind of up around the inside and thanks, mate.
A little tickle
on, and then obviously in New Zealand they're fully into it.
They want it. They are finding it.
They go right into the brainstem and have a little jab around, and you sort of forget your uncle's name and stuff. You go, fuck, it's just knocked out of my brain. But no, it's certainly something you learn to take it, don't you? I suppose.
Well, see, that's the only option. Yeah, because I managed to avoid COVID testing altogether until I travelled towards the end of last year, and I found it fine. I had a saliva test for pre-departure, and then overseas, there's throat tests, and as you said, they don't go very high on the nose. Then when I came back for MIQ, I was shitting myself about that very first test. I was like dreading it, but the first one was actually fine. It sort of tickled and I sneezed afterwards. It felt kind of pleasantish even.
Yeah, just a wee tickler.
And I thought, I've been dreading this thing, and it just goes to show that you shouldn't be fearful of these things because whatever. And then the day 3 test or whatever, oh my God, holy shit.
Yeah.
My eye was watering for hours afterwards.
Yeah.
It was unpleasant.
Yeah, we went in the hotel and we're at the Crown Plaza, and I went in for my day 1 and someone was coming out. I think it was maybe Tim Seifert. And he just went, don't go to the blonde chick on the end. And I looked at him, he looked like he'd been punched in the face. So my eyes were watering. And I got in there and there was like this one blonde lady at the end looking at me, and I was like, nah, just like waited a little bit longer to get the lady sort of closest, and she wasn't too bad. But no, there's certainly a difference in
it does depend on the individual, doesn't it? Yeah. Hey, we'll finish up with some quick-fire running questions, even though, it's been fabulous chatting with you. I never realised I invited you on because I thought you enjoyed running.
I feel better when I am running.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it's pain while it's happening, but then when I'm in a rhythm where I'm running 2 or 3 times a week, I definitely feel better as an individual. It's just the case of actually having the self-discipline to do it.
Okay, what do you listen to when you run?
Spotify playlists.
Do you?
Not podcasts, music, yeah.
Where's your favourite place to run?
I love running around Cornwall Park, but we're down kind of in One Tree Hill, Onehunga-ish area, so it's like a real steep run up Rafferty Road to get there. So I love the running in there the most, but I hate getting there the most. So
because of the hill. The hills are great though.
Oh no, I'm heavy, mate. You're 80 kgs bringing wet, mate. I'm 101.
Okay. What's your favourite shoe? Do you have a favourite shoe to run it?
New Balance, of course.
Yeah. And you prefer to run alone or with a crew?
Alone.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same. I've got a thing. If you're running with someone else, someone's running faster than what they want, and someone's running slower than what they want.
Yeah. Although I do like that, I go running a lot with Lockie Ferguson and Ben Horn, who's an Auckland cricketer, because they're both fitter than me. So if I go running with them, I'm like panting like a dog, like hanging out the back end of them, and I need to hang on, and that's when I run my quickest.
Yeah, right.
Because when I'm by myself, I'm kind of in my comfort zone.
You go, yeah, you do. Yeah. You tend to cruise, don't you? You go at your comfortable pace. Do you prefer summer running or winter running?
Summer.
Oh, runner's high, real or myth?
Real. As in, like, while you're doing it?
Well, I think it's just that endorphin rush. I feel like it can happen during or after.
Yeah. True. Yeah, definitely.
You have it during or after? Sounds like you have it when as soon as you finish running.
I've actually had it a couple of times during, but like when I've run a half marathon, like that kind of kilometre sort of 13 to 15, like just at a random point in the middle when you've sort of gone into the hurt box and you've run too far and you don't have the ability to keep running, but then you do, and then your body almost gives up. Your body stops bothering telling you that it's in pain, and it sort of goes, okay, well, if you're going to do it, you're going to do it. And then you sort of run for a couple of Ks in the middle and you go, I feel great.
Yeah.
And then obviously inevitably comes back.
Yeah, it's like that sweet spot. But it's amazing, how you can sort of ebb and flow like that and go from feeling complete shit and like you've given it everything you've got to suddenly having a period where you're just in like a flow state again.
Yeah, well, you see it, like you mentioned I use Strava, and you see it with the kilometre breakdowns, and sometimes you just have a couple of Ks where you go 10 or 15 seconds quicker than all the rest of it, and you look back and go, no, that wasn't downhill or anything. It was just kind of got into a good rhythm, and like I try and match my breathing up with my strides, and if I can do that, I feel like I'm like in a real good rhythm of running.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I've never tried that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I suppose it's like almost like a locomotion sort of thing.
Yeah.
You probably get in like a zone and
like I try and go out, in, out, in with my like left, right, and just try and like get into a rhythm where it's just almost all happening in sync. Yeah. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, that's the thing. It's such an individual thing. Nobody does, and there's no right or wrong, and I think that's the cool thing about it. Hey, thank you so much for your time today. Best of luck for the year ahead and what it may bring. Hopefully, we get to see you in whites playing a test match again.
Yeah, ideally. I know I'm not going to get an invite for a run now because we both just said that we like running by ourselves.
No, it's great. I'd love to run with you sometime.
Yeah, sounds good.